Talking about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, it's finally time for me to talk about Sonic X. I've talked about this show before, but barely ever. So, this is one of the first Sonic things I ever saw, and I have quite an interesting history with it. So before I talk about that history, I just want to say that I'm going to do a video on each season. I am currently rewatching Season 2, but when I do get around to doing the Seasons 2 and 3 videos, it will be structured like this. So, what is my history with Sonic X? Well, I watched it for the first time back in 2017, I believe. Maybe it was 2018, I'm pretty sure it's 2017. And here's the thing about Sonic X back then when I was at that age. I thought the show was bad. Really bad. Not necessarily terrible, but more so just so cringeworthy, I suppose. But here's the thing. I couldn't stop watching it. I watched so many episodes in one day. I was obsessed with it. To this day, I still stand by. This is the only time I can concede and say this is so bad it's good. I always thought that was a stupid phrase, but I gotta say, Sonic X is just so bad it's good. Now, I never actually finished Sonic X, as I didn't watch the last 2 episodes because I just hated Season 3. Why did I hate Season 3? Well, we'll get into that when I actually review Season 3, that's not for a while. But then, in 2022, after getting really into the Sonic fandom, I decided I'm going to rewatch Sonic X. Just Seasons 1 and 2, by the way, and my thoughts were the same, but from a more mature perspective, which is, yeah, it's so bad it's good. It's not a very good show. It has a few parts that are genuinely good, but it's just so fun. It's completely insane and absurdist and dumb, but that's what makes it entertaining. And so today I'm going to review Season 1. And I think this, out of all 3 seasons, well, definitely not my favorite of the 3, perfectly captures that absurdist humor that I'll enjoy from this show. So now I'm going to dive into each characters I think are worth talking about, and then get into my favorite episodes. So there's Sonic himself, and yeah, this is one of my least favorite portrayals of Sonic. Why? Because he has 0 personality. He's definitely more of a Japanese Sonic, which makes sense as an anime, and look, I know there's so many people who see that American Sonic is a horrible characterization, and Japanese Sonic is perfect, or whatever, and look, I'm an American, I prefer the American characterization, but even people who prefer the Japanese characterization can just say that this Sonic is just boring. He's not even present for half the show. He hardly has any quips or jokes. And look, guys, I'm going to be blunt. I don't like Jason Griffith's Sonic voice. I said this before, and I'll say it again. But previously, I've said I used to say it was my least favorite of the game voices, but I still really liked it. But as I heard it more and more, I began to like his Sonic voice less and less. And yeah, I just don't like his Sonic voice. I liked him in Black Knight. That's it. His voice just sounds so stilted and emotionless. And in the early episodes, he sounds like he's doing an impression of Yakko Warner for some reason, which, yeah, that's a great voice, but not only is this a bad impression, it just doesn't fit Sonic. And yeah, he basically just shows up in the early episodes for a Deus Ex Machina. He just does whatever. People say, oh, isn't this so interesting? He goes wherever the wind takes him, but he does nothing. I'm sorry, guys, this version of Sonic just sucks. Be a little more positive, though. There's Tails and Amy. These are okay versions of Tails and Amy. For Tails, I like that he's more independent, I guess. Still feels like a kid. The problem is just that I don't really like Amy Palin's Tails voice that much. It just sounds kind of annoying. Not super annoying. Like, I got used to it pretty quickly. I just don't really care for it. Lisa Ortiz is probably the best voice Amy has ever had, though. I think all her voices are pretty good. Watching the show again, I gotta say she's probably the best Amy voice. Now as for the actual character... Yes, I know Amy's character is supposed to be that she's obsessed with Sonic, and look, I do understand why people wish they'd bring that back, and I think they should bring it back, but they shouldn't bring it back to the extent that this show had it. Her entire personality is just she is obsessed with Sonic. It's annoying. It's not funny. I think we should get a story where she is obsessed with Sonic at first, but only she's not quite as obsessed as she is in this show. She just learns that, hey, Sonic doesn't love her. She's got to get over it. I think that'd make for a more interesting story than she's just continuously obsessed with Sonic and stalks him, basically. Whatever. Okay, Eggman. Eggman is great. Gotta get some positivity in there somewhere. So much of the show's humor comes from him, and he definitely helps. Even from his first performance, Mike Pollock killed it as Eggman. It's interesting how in the early episodes he sounds like a completely different character, and his laugh is completely different. He doesn't do that. Okay, that was horrible. And I think the show proves just how good of a menacing Eggman voice he can do. Yes, I do think his voice in the game, when it comes to doing a menacing Eggman, sounded best in Unleashed, where he was still able to do the more comedic voice we expect from him, but while still being able to deliver the menacing lines. But so while I do prefer that kind of Eggman's voice from Mike Pollock, this is still a good one. It proves that he could capture. Everyone remembers him as the comedic Eggman, but it proves he can do a good job with the menacing stuff. I like Deco and Boko. They're basically just Beta, Orbot, and Cubots. They're not as funny. I mean, nothing can ever top Orbot and Cubot in Sonic Boom, or I don't know, Sniffly and Archie. I guess Sad AM too. But Eggman is still pretty good in this show. He feels like a genuine threat. I like the designs of a lot of his robots. Mike Pollock did a great job voicing him. He's just a really good interpretation of Eggman. Like, I don't really have any complaints with him. Chris. Look, guys, I don't hate Chris as much as everyone else, but my problem with Chris isn't that he's super annoying. It's just that he's the main character basically in season 1. I argue that season 2, which I'm currently rewatching, doesn't really have a main character, but maybe I'll talk about that when I actually review season 2. As for season 3, I haven't seen it in years. Again, when I get to that video, I'll talk about that. But Chris is just kind of boring, so him getting so much screen time is a waste of time. Well, really. I don't hate the humans in this show. I think it did an interesting job of saying how, unlike in the games or Archie, which even in Archie they still kind of covered humans or overlanders versus Mobians, but this show covers how, much like they do later in the movies, the Mobians, which I'm just going to call them that because it's easier, are aliens. How does mankind react to aliens? I like the president's character. I like the subplot of his vice president becoming a homeless man, which they show a lot of in season 2. I think Mr. Tanaka and Mr. Stewart are pretty funny. Chris' grandpa's fine. Ella's fine. Chris' parents are fine, I guess. But Chris is just dull. He doesn't have any kind of wacky, quirky character trait like all the other humans do. Tanaka has the fact that he's this Japanese martial artist butler guy. Mr. Stewart is this eccentric guy who's actually a secret agent who just popped out of nowhere doing all these random things and nobody questions. Oh, Sam's speed is really funny. When I rewatched the first episode, my thoughts were I just laughed, thinking, yeah, of course the police have an entire race car squadron. He's great. Basically just prototype Jet the Hawk. Yeah, Ella's fine. I mean, she's got the wacky characterization down. Chris' grandpa's pretty funny, but Chris is just, yeah, he's dull. This whole section I haven't really talked about him because there's nothing to say about Chris. He's boring. Anything there is to say about Chris, oh boy, we'll get to when I talk about season 2. I guess I could say the scene in episode 4 where he tries to steal the Chaos Emeralds from Eggman was really funny. Or when he just somehow steals all the Chaos Emeralds from Eggman's giant robot. By the way, that giant robot looked straight out of Sonic Adventure 2.5 from Archie. For those of you who know, you know. Okay, last character I'm going to talk about is Knuckles. This is probably my second favorite version of Knuckles. Maybe third favorite. He's great. When I watched this show back in 2022, I thought, wow, Dan Green's the best Knuckles voice. After I watched it, I began to think, maybe Dave B. Mitchell's a little better, maybe they're tied. But now I gotta say, Dan Green's a little better. He's great as Knuckles. Sure, maybe his voice is a little rougher than you would want for his voice to be, but not only do I think it just really fits the show, I think he does a great job. I think he just did a really good job with all the rage and the not necessarily pettiness, but the way Knuckles reacts to everything. He does a good job with that. I just genuinely like watching Knuckles throughout this show. Sure, there's funny episodes like when he gets tricked by Eggman fighting Sonic, which I guess Sonic 3 and Knuckles didn't happen in this universe, so he hasn't been tricked by Eggman before. But whatever. His dynamic with Rouge, which I'll get into in the season 2 review. He only really plays off her in one episode here, but it was pretty good. Like the episode The Adventures of Knuckles and Hawk, which I'll also talk about later. Yeah, he's just a fun character. I like Knuckles here. He's cool. Unlike the other characters who are just absurd and dumb and fun, or in some cases really boring, Knuckles is just genuinely a good character. Much like Eggman. Okay, favorite episode. Starting off with Cracking Knuckles, episode 5. Yeah, I mentioned that I guess Sonic 3 Knuckles didn't happen in this continuity because, I guess it's the first time Knuckles is tricked by Eggman, and sure, it makes not really any sense, but, it's a fun episode. It's a classic. It actually got a reanimated project, apparently. Maybe I'll see that someday. I do wish the show had better animation because apparently it was animated by the guys who did Animaniacs, I think, or at least some of it. So I don't really expect better animation out of them. The thing about this show, it has a cool art style for the most part, but the animation is just not very good. I know there are 4Kids censorships and all that, but the animation just and the fight scenes just aren't that good. I wish we could have gotten a real cool fist fight, or I guess whatever, between Sonic and Knuckles. That said, I still do enjoy this episode. It's a fun episode. What else is there to say? Techno Teacher. The very next episode, actually. Episode 6. This episode is hilarious. So, Eggman's evil scheme in this episode is he decides, I know how to conquer the world. I'll make an evil robot teacher that I'll plant in a classroom. It'll teach the kids to love me, and then they'll convince their parents to love me, and then everyone will love me. And sign the world over to me. And then the robot ends up being a really nice teacher that all the kids like, and he likes the kids. And then he doesn't want to teach them about Eggman or something, and Eggman himself shows up, and then Sonic chases him away or something, and there's this subplot about Mr. Stewart getting chased by a cop because he stole his burger. It's so stupid and absurd, but it's hilarious. That's the best way to describe this episode. It's just fun. Unfair Ball. The obligatory baseball episode, or sports episode, I guess. Sonic Boom did soccer, I guess this show's doing baseball. This episode's just really fun. It thrives on the character interactions. You know, like, it being randomly revealed that, Chris Grandpa is a huge baseball fan. He's saying to Eggman, yeah, of course we'll have a baseball, a game with you in order to determine who gets the Chaos Emerald. Or Knuckles not really wanting to play, but everyone says, oh yeah, Knuckles, are you chicken? Says, oh yeah, I'll be the best baseball player you've ever seen! But it also says this episode of Pars, it actually has a decent bit of emotion, I guess. Like at the beginning, Tails finds this baseball stadium because he detects a Chaos Emerald there, and he talks to the groundskeeper, says he's been working there for 30 years, but now his team is moving to a new stadium. They're finally going to close down this place, even though it's really nice. And Tails just feels kind of bad for this guy. And then Tails doesn't. At the end, Tails saying, "What? We can't let this team leave because this is the guy. The guy worked here for so long. It's just a nice place. You can't get rid of it. Take it down." And then it shows how everyone starts gathering in the stadium to watch the baseball game between Team Sonic and Team Eggman. And then the owner and the groundskeeper mentioned that he hasn't spoken to the manager of the stadium in years. But at the end, he shows up and says, I saw the game you were playing. This really is a nice place. I'm really happy that people are still showing up here to play baseball. I am going to keep the stadium open. Sure, it's simple. It's a little rushed. It's kind of cheesy, but it's nice. And I think it's nice for that the show proves it can do stuff like that, even though what I remember it for is his absurdist humor. Fly Spy, Rouge's introduction. Okay, not technically her introduction because she had a cameo in the first episode, but whatever. Just want to say that Kathleen Delaney is the best Rouge voice easily. Lonnie Manel was good. I think Karen Strassman has done some good performances. Like in Dark Beginnings, she did a pretty good job there, but Kathleen Delaney is just the best voice for the character, I think. She just plays all the different tones of voice really well. But what about the actual episode? So this is a fun one. Rouge steals the diamond from some museum. Then the government shows up and catches her. I think she was trying to steal a Chaos Emerald too, and they help her try to, I think, get a Chaos Emerald or break an Eggman's base or something. I'm not, for some reason, I can't quite remember, but she meets Topaz. She's a lot of fun banter with her and all of the other gun soldiers, like where they tie this bracelet to her. It says, if you mess up, we're going to blow you up. Her introduction is pretty funny, I guess. I know, it's just a good episode. I like this episode. I don't really know what else to say. It's a really good introduction to the character. Beating Eggman, Part 2. This is actually a pretty good episode. Action-wise, it's got some cool, genuinely good action between Sonic and Eggman's giant robot, which again, really cool design. A lot of the robots have some really cool anime-esque designs. And that's coming from a guy who doesn't even really watch any anime. I like Knuckles riding a missile, which is actually in the show's intro. That is awesome. I want to see Knuckles ride a missile again. Finally get to meet Rouge, get some fun banter between the two of them there. I just like seeing him team up with all the government soldiers. Not gun soldiers. I guess gun just doesn't exist in this continuity. But yeah, stuff like that. Saying, oh yeah, well, I can break an Eggman's base and stop him easily. And Rouge tries to break down Eggman's door and she can't do it, and then he says, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna do it. And then it doesn't work, and the two of them realize they have to work together. Sonic gets to get punched by a giant robot, and then he gets to destroy it. Eggman's base gets blown up. It's an exciting episode. That's what friends are for. This is probably one of the most popular episodes of the show, and I can get why. So, the vice president tells the president, who looks like Richard Nixon but with gray hair for some reason, I have an idea how to get people to vote for you in the next election. Sonic is a world-renowned hero. Just have a nice dinner party here, get Sonic, you'll shake his hand, the press will take pictures of it, and your popularity will skyrocket. But then Sonic says he can't show up because he said he'd help some girl he met in a wheelchair from Chris's class who said that she always looks at this island during the day. She said her father always said he'd take her to it because it looks so beautiful and all that, but her parents are always working so much, they never have time to really spend with her or take her there. Sonic decides he's going to take her there. But he also ends up being on the run from the military, who spends, like the vice president calls it the Secretary of Defense, I think, to pull out soldiers and helicopters and tanks or something to catch Sonic. But the whole time, this girl is just really happy. She said she's never had such a fun, exciting day in her whole life, and she tells her parents about it. And they say to each other they've never seen their daughter so happy before. Maybe her father says, maybe I will take just one day off to spend with her. This is one of the few times where I think the show, much like that baseball episode, actually did emotional beats pretty well. But once again, the show still finds time to be funny. People always talk about the censorship of this episode, where instead of giving the press alcohol, the vice president says, "Oh, who wants some salami?" But it's Sonic X. Does that not fit the show's humor? And then in the original Japanese version, when Sonic finally shows up to shake hands with the president, the press is all falling asleep and can't take his picture because apparently they have hangovers, I guess. But just saying they fell asleep because they were waiting there for hours and hours and Sonic never showed up, that makes, I guess that makes more sense. And I don't know, it's still funny. Yeah, it was just a good episode. Sure. It once again paints a picture that Sonic doesn't really have any personality in this show. He's basically just a nice guy, but it does work in this context. The Adventures of Knuckles and Hawk. This is a really good episode. Who knew Knuckles could be friends with a human and it would actually make for a good episode of television? Knuckles Show! Or the Wade Ripple Show, I guess. But yeah, I really like this one. I will say, Knuckles' whole monologue about how he needs to get back to the Master Emerald and watch it 24/7 and do nothing else is just kind of funny. But it's a good episode. I like it. I like seeing Knuckles' adventure through this Chinatown, I think it is. The pretty funny bit where they censored this bar, this seedy bar he goes into be a burger restaurant. I don't know, I just think that's way funnier. his whole adventure going through this ancient pyramid and all that, his dynamic with Hawk, um, him getting the pretty good fight against Eggman's robot ninja lady, which, can I just say that, why is Rouge in this episode? Like, it makes sense that she's following the Chaos Emerald that Knuckles and Eggman's robot are looking for, but does she even speak in this episode? She doesn't really do anything. I'm not sure why she's even here. But still, I really like this episode. It's just a fun, entertaining, cool episode with some good action. If the show were more of this quality with this good animation that was closer to this level, again, it's still not great animation, but it is better than it was in the other episodes. I think I'd look at this show as less of a, it's hilarious and so bad it's good, and instead I'd look at it as, hey, that's a pretty good Sonic show. Also, it foreshadows chaos, which, that's pretty cool. Knuckles gets that vision, hears Takal's voice saying, and an image of the Master Emerald that says, "The servers are the seven chaos. Chaos is power. Power enriched by the heart." And you know the drill. Okay, conclusion. So yeah, Sonic X Season 1 is a very ridiculous, stupid show, but it's really fun. It's not that good, but it's just entertaining. Has a lot of fun character interactions, a really catchy theme song, a good soundtrack, cool art style, and yeah, well, objectively, it's written pretty poorly and has some moments that are pretty laughable for how lame they are. It is a fun show, and you know what? I can't deny that. If you think Sonic X Season 1 is genuinely good, and you're saying, how could you say this is terrible, but is still really funny, you're wrong. Hey, it's my opinion. And I don't think this is necessarily terrible. I don't think this season is as bad as I thought it was the first two times. I will say it is more good than it's better than I remember, but I still say it's so bad it's good. So, stay tuned for when I eventually get to covering Season 2. I'm excited for that. That's all for now. And remember to stay way past cool.